Story 1. Malcolm in the Middle is the best family show ever made. It portrays a realistic family that is struggling to make ends meet, and most of us can relate to it. Story 2. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It wasn't the entirety of my childhood, but before I could read a clock, I instinctively knew when it was time to watch it. Story 3. Little Kid My Little Pony, the original. Older kid, are you afraid of the dark? Teen, The X-Files and So Weird. Older teen, Stargate and Sequest. Story 4. The original Star Trek was watched when it initially aired. I was very young at the time but rediscovered it in reruns when I was 11 years old. Story 5. Sliders and Star Trek Voyager. Story 6. I can trace my whole childhood through a succession of my shows. First, The Real Ghostbusters. Next, Star Trek, The Next Generation. Then, The X-Files. Finally, The Sopranos. I would include The Wire, but I had already graduated from high school by the time that obsession started. Story 7. The Amazing Spider-Man is the first live-action television series featuring Spider-Man. It was shown on CBS in the United States from September 14, 1977 to July 6, 1979. Story 8. Inspector Gadget, Andy Griffith, Looney Tunes, The Flintstones, The Jetsons. Those are the ones I can remember. Breaker High, Family Matters, Sister, Power Rangers, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, Freaky Stories, Pinky and the Brain. Story 9. In Living Color was the greatest sketch comedy show ever made, at least for the first 3 seasons. Story 10. I don't know why Totally Spies immediately came to mind as the obvious answer, but it is definitely the correct one for me. It's an absolutely entertaining show. Story 11. Probably That 70s Show, since it was in syndication while it still aired new episodes, allowing viewers to watch it daily before the start of streaming. Story 12. Walker, Texas Ranger and Murder. She Wrote were the shows my grandma and I would watch when she came over to babysit. I always looked forward to watching Walker and Murder on days my mom worked. Story 13. I was raised during a time when over-the-air broadcasting was still common, and I lived very near the border of Canada. Consequently, I was able to watch Canadian Broadcasting Corporation shows. Every morning, I would watch Fred Penner, who was essentially Canada's Mr. Rogers, as well as French-Canadian Sesame Street. Story 14. As a child, I was always fascinated by the stories in Reading Rainbow, as well as the diversity of the kids on the show and the places LeVar Burton would visit. During my preteen years, I enjoyed Boy Meets World. It was wholesome, especially during the chaotic and stressful times in my own family. I appreciated the serene wisdom of Mr. Feeney, along with the comedy. In my younger teen years, I watched The Mole. It inspired modern escape room games and was where Anderson Cooper got his start. It was a fun detective and problem-solving show with a sleuthy vibe and an engaging soundtrack. Story 15. Futurama. My young 7-year-old self saw a trailer and knew it would be one of the funniest shows I would love. Years later, that still rings true. As a proud part of the Futurama community, it serves as great background noise, and I still catch new things after all these years. Story 16. All That. Clarissa Explains It All. Salute Your Shorts. These were the main shows I ensured to have my homework done for. Story 17. Zoids New Century. For those who don't know about Zoids, imagine giant robots inspired by animals. Story 18. My sister and I treated Total Drama Island as if it were a real reality game show. We made theories about who we thought would win. Story 19. As a younger child, I loved Transformers, the show, the toys, and the comics. I even learned to program our VHS recorder to capture new episodes that aired in the afternoon while I was at school. In my teenage years, I started watching Star Trek, The Next Generation, and the subsequent series. The Next Generation remains my favorite television show. It serves as a source of comfort for me. Story 20. M***************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************$$ $$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$$ $$$ $$$ $$$ $$$ and Hill Street Blues were all my favorites. I mostly watched M***S***H in reruns. Story 21. Magical Do Re-Mi and the Winx Club. Despite being a boy, I enjoyed watching these shows every Saturday morning. Something about the bright colors and wholesome stories appealed to me. Story 22. I was 15 when my so-called Life came out. I watched it each week, and it changed my life. It was an important show for a 15-year-old girl in the early 1990s. Young girls today can still watch it, and it remains relevant. Story 23. Unfortunately, my parents found Happy Tree Friends, and without checking it, put it on for me before leaving for other activities. I watched it and continued to watch over time. Story 24. There was a French cartoon called Foot to Rue that was broadcast on local television. It used to be on right after I got home from school. Story 25. Skins. It was based in the United Kingdom, so it had the foreign cool element while also being similar to what I experienced as a teenager in Canada. Story 26. My childhood was defined by a series of television shows. Here they are from the first one I remember being obsessed with up until high school graduation. The Dukes of Hazzard, Elf, The Wonder Years, Beverly Hills 90210/Melrose Place. Watching The Wonder Years alongside Beverly Hills 90210 while I was the same age as the main characters in both shows was incredible. One was so wholesome while the other was a true product of its time. Story 27. Aaron Stone on Disney XD was one of my favorites, and I swear no one else remembers it was even a thing except me. Story 28. Ben 10, Slugterra, Coda Beam, Hattie Buddy, Doryman, Desi, Shaktaman, Junior G, Shaka Laka Boom Boom, Vicryl Gabriel. Story 29. As a 15-year-old boy, I was embarrassed to admit that I liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It started with, wow, Sarah Michelle Gellar is super pretty, then progressed to, wow, all of the actresses are beautiful. And eventually I thought, I actually like this show. Story 30, Real Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Care Bears, Batman, 1960s, Batman, the animated series, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Full House. Story 31. Thank goodness I grew up with the original first few seasons of SpongeBob. It came out when I was still little, and I enjoyed the good SpongeBob. Story 32. As a kid, I loved Arthur and Goosebumps. As I got older, I really liked the sitcom Grounded for Life, as well as the shows Everwood, Pretty Little Liars, South Park, and Family Guy. Story 33. Deadliest Catch. My older sister loves shows like that and Whale Wars. She always had the remote, but it's safe to say I ended up really liking it anyway. Story 34. I used to live right outside Quantico and the Naval Criminal Investigative Service headquarters. I was also named after a character that died in the Season 2 finale. Story 35. Live and Kicking with Zoe Ball and Jamie Theakston, followed by Saturday morning television with Ant and December. I would never oversleep on a Saturday morning. Story 36. I have always liked The Simpsons. My dad used to tell us stories about some of his favorite episodes, and I have loved it ever since. Story 37. It changed over the years. However, the first one that came to mind was The Greatest American Hero. Though after thinking for a moment, it should probably be The Muppet Show. Story 38. As a child, I enjoyed Rugrats. As a preteen, I liked Rocket Power because I was very interested in extreme sports. As a teenager, I was drawn to CSI because I initially wanted to pursue a career in law enforcement or become a teacher. Story 39. Do I have to choose one? The Crocodile Hunter. As a teenager, I kind of stopped watching television. Avatar, The Last Airbender was one of the last shows I cared about at that age. Story 40. The Ed Sullivan Show. Yes, I'm old. He always had something for everyone and featured the best up-and-coming acts, including Elvis, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones, among others. Story 41. The soundtrack to my childhood. Story 42. The A-Team was my favorite as a little girl. I remember recording episodes from the TV with the VCR. Dragon Ball Z will always have my heart. Story 43. I enjoyed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was younger, and later, I found comfort in watching Happy Days and Star Trek. I still watch these two as comfort shows. Story 44. When I was very young, Batman, The animated series was definitely my favorite. During my childhood, I also enjoyed Naruto. I remember asking my parents to move my bedtime to 9:30 so I could watch it. I watched every episode and most of them as soon as the subtitled version was released. Story 45. Power Rangers, Xena, Warrior Princess, Hercules, Sinbad, Captain Planet, Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, the Powerpuff Girls. Story 46. Sailor Moon, Magic School Bus, Arthur, Toad Patrol, a highly underrated and fantastic show that everyone should check out. Code Lyoko. Story 47. Young childhood experiences included Sailor Moon, transitioning to teenage and young adult years with Buffy, Angel, and Supernatural. I discovered the CW network. Story 48. The Simpsons. It's 199 something, and my little pneumonia-filled, hallucinating self was not going to miss the reveal. I woke up, panicked, every 5 minutes. Story 49. The Wonder Years shaped my entire middle and high school experience. I identified with Kevin Arnold, who was searching for a Winnie. However, I faced challenges. I was poor, intelligent, overweight, and humorous. In a surprising turn of events, it did not work out for me at that time, but I eventually found my way. Story 50. Dragon Tales. My sisters liked Barbie and Monster High, but I only ever stayed still to watch those dragons. Story 51. As a family, we watched a lot of Growing Pains when I was a kid. However, the show I personally enjoyed the most was probably Malcolm in the Middle or That 70s Show. Smallville was pretty cool in the early 2000s when I was in junior high, but that show jumped the shark really quickly. Story 52. The one I remember the most is That 70s Show. We used to watch it every Sunday when the new episodes would come out. It was like a family tradition. Personally, from ages 6 to 10, I loved Dragon Ball Z. Story 53. Hey Arnold is probably the most wholesome show to ever grace television screens. It essentially taught my generation how to not be unkind and still holds up today. Story 54. Cheers, Family Ties, Knight Rider, Fame, Remington Steele, listened to English on the radio. Matt Houston was past my bedtime but often got away with it. Tales from the Dark Side, Three's Company, Mr. Belvedere. Story 55. The original Battlestar Galactica. Additionally, the A-Team and the Dukes of Hazzard were enjoyable to watch. Late 1970s to early 1980s. Story 56. Yu-Gi-Oh! And its following spin-offs have an appeal that continues to attract me. The humor from 4Kids, combined with the captivating monsters, has kept me engaged to this day. Story 57. Honestly, it was probably Hannah Montana. I've never really thought about it before, but I was such a Disney Channel kid and loved all of it. Hannah Montana was likely the main show for me. From 2003 to 2011, Disney Channel shaped my childhood. Story 58. Star Blazers features an impressive theme song and great episodes. It has a fantastic overarching storyline. Each episode concludes with the characters stating that Earth has a certain number of days left, which decreases with every episode. The plot twist at the end is remarkable. Story 59. Justice League. Whenever I start an episode, it is a ritual to let the theme song play all the way through. I am still watching to this day. Rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. Story 60. Growing up around the age of 10 to 12, I definitely remember watching Double Dare and MacGyver. Since we didn't have cable, we all went to one friend's house who had Nickelodeon, so we could watch Double Dare right after school. The good old days. Story 61. Apparently Teletubbies. I guess when I was young, I wouldn't go to sleep without watching it, so my parents eventually had to start recording episodes on VHS for me. I don't really remember much about that show anymore, aside from the giant stuffed Puh and Tinky Winky that took up space in our basement for most of my childhood. Story 62. I still watch The Simpsons to this day, and I'm in my 30s. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Story 63. Animated Batman and animated Spider-Man of the 1990s. There were others, but no Saturday morning was complete without these two. Story 64. Thomas, the Team Engine, was also my introduction to the Beatles. It became a significant part of my life later on in high school, and I still resonate with their music. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.